Good morning and welcome to Friday Unalive here on Nebraska Public Media. We're broadcasting this week from our spooky studios in Lincoln. Portions of today's show are pre-recorded. I'm Genevieve. Anvil Orchestra is back in town for the Ross's spooky series of movies. Those musicians will join us. The Omaha Symphony has a concert for Dia de los Muertos. Meanwhile, in central Nebraska, the Hastings Symphony is celebrating their 100th anniversary. We'll learn more about that. And later, we'll hear another of the statements written by one of the guest curators of the Go Big Red collection, currently at the Sheldon Museum of Art.
The trickster figure is a potent force in many tribal cultures.
Thanks for listening here this morning to Friday Unalive this week on Nebraska Public Media. Support for programming comes from The Ross. Opening tonight is Blue Moon, a film that follows songwriter Lorenz Hart to the 1943 opening night of the musical Oklahoma and the breakup of his creative partnership with Richard Rodgers. Also, The Mastermind, the story of an unemployed carpenter in Massachusetts living a double life as an art thief. TheRoss.org. Classic horror films come to life at the Ross in Lincoln this Halloween with two special Fright Fest screenings featuring live accompaniment from the Anvil Orchestra. The group performs their original score for Nosferatu tonight to round out this frightful fest. That's at 7:30 p.m. And I am so excited to have both Anvil members here, Terry Donahue and Roger Miller, with me this morning. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Great to see you. And I'll admit, I went to the Phantom show last night, which was really fun to see.
There's no shame in that.
Yeah. It was really fun. I do have a question about that, even though folks tonight will see a different film. There was color on the screen.
There was often color in these silent films. This was, I believe, one of the very early Technicolor sequences.
So that's original to 1925?
Yes.
Whoa. We always think of The Wizard of Oz as being this major thing where she's black and white and then she leaves Kansas and it's all colorful and that's like the beginning of color film, but not so.
Not so. In the silent era, I think one of the first feature color films was Douglas Fairbanks' The Black Pirate, which was done with a two-strip Technicolors. Yeah, no, a thing or two. Two-strip Technicolor.
Yeah, you've been around.
But they had to have completely different costumes and makeups for the indoor scenes and the outdoor scenes to try to match them up. So there's science involved.
How do they do it then?
Oh, it's very specific, and we don't have time for me to get into all of that.
It's possible we don't know exactly all the details, but...
Is there any color in Nosferatu, or do we say black and white?
It's pretty much the blood is in your mind.
Okay, the blood is in your mind. I feel like that should be the title to something in and of itself, the blood is in your mind. What do you think having the live accompaniment brings to a film like Nosferatu?
Aside from life to the undead? Well, any of these silent films, or any situation, live is better.
There's kind of a danger to it because we are actually performing this live while you're watching the movie. So we could screw up. Something bad could happen, but it hardly ever does. And if it does, you probably won't notice. But so that gives it this kind of different kind of tension than if you're just watching a movie with the score already on there and you know exactly that it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
We have to be perfect.
You guys have been doing this now as either Alloy or Anvil for, was it 35 years?
35 years, yes.
Do you change a score over those years?
Oh, yeah. Well, this Nosferatu is the third time that we've scored it, so each time it's a little bit different. We did it many, many years ago before Roger with our original keyboard player, Caleb Sampson. And then we did it again as the Alloy Orchestra when Roger was in the group. And now that it's just the two of us, we said, let's just start from scratch. And each time it gets better and better.
Yeah, and because there's just two of us and we're both pretty experienced at this job, it's much more improvisatory and gradual instead of like cuts. Like now the new song starts, now the new song. It's more like, especially for Nosferatu, it's just like a continuous mood change. Really quite
and lends itself to the creepiness that comes somewhat naturally to us.
I understand there's an original score by Hans Erdmann.
We don't care about that.
You don't pull from that at all?
No, we never pull from any of the originals. And, good for Hans, but...
What kind of instruments or sounds do you use to create some of the eerie mood?
Well, I mean, the keyboards, I've got, strings and stuff. It's mostly fairly traditional in the orchestra. Terry handles the more peculiar stuff.
The secret weapon is always the musical saw, which a lot of people mistake for a theremin, but it's, infinitely cooler than a theremin. And I also have a lovely piece of old conduit from an air conditioner that I play very lovingly and bow it and play it like a gong, so sort of thunder, and then regular drums, and of course there's the horseshoes and the car truck spring, and some accordion. So I have a little bit to do.
And as we, if I'm doing a certain type of creepy string and he's doing, like a pans and stuff, it adds up. Each time we do a different combination of sounds, it's like a whole different ensemble.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what keeps the movie moving along.
What to the two of you is so iconic about Nosferatu compared to other versions of sort of a similar vampire-esque feel?
Well, it's Max Schreck, like the Nosferatu Dracula character. He's so iconic, and he basically carries the movie. And he hardly does anything. If you watch it, he barely moves, and yet he's terrifying.
Right? That's pretty skilled. Shadows, too, are a big part of this.
There's a lot of shadows, so it's not just black and white. There's some gray area. Whoa.
There you go.
I wish listeners could have seen your face just now when you said, whoa, Terry.
Yeah, my face is more attuned for radio, of course.
So good. One thing that amazes me watching you, Roger, is the fact that you do have this keyboard, and I have to make myself pay attention to you guys, by the way. Like, you can just get sucked into the film and not know that you guys are there, which is true. But I intentionally turned and watched for a minute, because you'll change sounds just like that. It's pretty smooth, and it's like a whole orchestra is over there, and there's just the two of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's my job to press this button that moves to the next sound. I mean, it's pretty well scripted out. Like in Phantom of the Opera, there was like 50 different changes. And, when one scene is done, I press the button, and I'm ready for the next scene. It goes from piano to creepy strings and that kind of stuff, and it's...
Whereas I have to physically get up and move from one instrument to another. It's like I should be paid twice as much, I think.
Yeah. How do you balance the electronic with the acoustic?
Well, that's
what makes it work.
That's what really makes it work, was all the acoustic stuff and some of the things that are, let's call them randomly tuned, like the horseshoes, and we have these things we call the cake pans. They're sort of like a randomly tuned steel drum kind of sound. The organic sounds temper the synthetic sounds, so you don't feel like you're just listening to an electronic synthesizer. So
as a musician and composer for many other types of music that I am, I don't really like the idea of playing strings on a keyboard and acting as if you're strings, but as Terry said, it's balanced out by the very organic sounds that he makes, and plus you're watching a movie, and humans are mostly ocular oriented, so the humans are willing to forget those humans, who they are. There's some of you out there.
I've met a few humans. I don't know.
But they will accept that it's strings, even though it really doesn't sound as much like strings as you think it does. But you accept it because you're watching the movie, and it's just part of the.
And it's a lot easier to bring one synthesizer than a full entire orchestra.
Yeah, that is true.
So I should get paid more than you because I'm playing 50 different parts. Come on.
Touche.
Well, a lot of our listeners here may have only seen the 2024 adaptation of Nosferatu, or maybe they might not even know the story at all. I wonder if you could kind of give us a little survey, and then talk about how these century-old films still feel alive for modern audiences.
Well, I'll answer the second question first. It still feels alive, and because of us. Whenever we do these films, we try to find the best films we can, and the way we score them, we're not going back in time to try to sound like the 20s. We're trying to catapult these films into the now, because these things can stand alone as now. So that's kind of our goal, is to make it more contemporary.
Bring it alive to the present audience. We're not trying to recreate the past. We're trying to bring these films alive to us all. 2025.
So the music is part of that, keeping it fresh. What is the storyline, and how is it different from, say, Dracula?
Well, that's funny because it's the exact same story, pretty much. They made this film. They changed a couple of the names. They used the Dracula story, and Bram Stoker sued them and won. So they were supposed to have destroyed every single copy of this film. Thankfully, they have not. So luckily this film lives on, and but it's the Bram Stoker Dracula story.
I did see the new Nosferatu. Is it called? It's called Nosferatu.
Yeah,
yes,
it is. Yeah,
I found it very interesting, but it's because I know the other one so well, having played to it like 50 or 100 times, and so it was interesting to me to watch how they treated the exact same story but varied it quite a bit.
Yeah, interesting.
And I thought the use of shadows was really good in the new one, but the one that we're playing to tonight is really the bottom line.
Oh my gosh, there's just so much, I think, in a silent film, because it is so visual.
Yeah.
That there's like a microscope on certain movements and facial expressions. I think it's going to be a great way for some folks to spend a Halloween evening. As people are watching you guys tonight and watching the film, I think I want to leave people with something a little different about what you guys do, because you're, musicians in other ways as well. What are you doing when you're not accompanying silent films?
I released 2 records last year. My rock band, Trinary System, actually is technically released tonight on Halloween, on the Cuneiform label.
And this is Roger Miller speaking.
This is Roger Miller, yeah. And I've released a couple records under the name Roger Clark Miller, where I play multiple guitars, like 4 different guitars at the same time with a looping machine, and the music is structured by dreams. And my last one was called Curiosity for Solo Electric Guitar Ensemble. And I just finished a Midwest tour of that music that got me to Chicago.
Congrats. Nice. That's awesome. Terry, how about you?
I'm doing a bunch of home recordings right now. I'm putting together a record featuring a cousin that I have who has this glorious voice, and it needs to be heard. So I've been building a band by myself and recording to get her out. And I also, me and my wife, Susie Pence, do a sound healing presentations once a month in southern Vermont, where she has the Crystal Singing Bowls, and I have a large assortment of gongs and bells and chimes, and we do our best to heal with the sound. We're called Sound Healing Vermont.
There you go. Lots of facets to the two of you here.
Keep moving.
Keep moving. Keep on moving. Roger Miller and Terry Donahue are with Anvil Orchestra, and they're performing live at the Ross Media Arts Center in Lincoln tonight at 7:30, accompanying Nosferatu. So get your 1920s film in there for your Halloween experience. Terry and Roger, thank you so much for coming in.
Great. Thank you, Genevieve.
Always a pleasure. Yep.
For more information, visit the Friday Live page. That is at nebraskapublicmedia.org. The Jazz Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, led by 9-time Grammy winner Wynton Marsalis, is returning to the Lead Center. That concert is in Lincoln on Sunday, November 2nd, 7 p.m. The 15-member ensemble is known as one of the premier big bands in the world, performing jazz classics alongside new compositions. Joining us today for Friday Live is Alexa Tarantino, one of the group's newest members, and an acclaimed saxophonist and composer who just released her new album, The Roar and the Whisper. Alexa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Genevieve. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is so exciting. You've been described as a, quote, one-woman wrecking crew by Wynton Marsalis. What's it like to get a compliment like that from the Wynton Marsalis?
That's quite a phrase, and I certainly appreciate it. Just try to wake up every day and live up to that. It's really a privilege to get to work with him and have him as my mentor. I've known him since I was in high school when I first was a part of the Essentially Ellington program at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And so it's many years later, and here we are coming to the Lead Center shortly. So it's been a great journey.
What is that Ellington program? I think listeners might be curious to know about that.
So it's called the Essentially Ellington Competition and Festival. It's been running for 30 years. It is a national and actually international gathering of about 14 to 15. This last year for the 30th anniversary, we actually had 30 jazz bands from around the world. Typically, it's about 14 high school jazz bands from around the country that we select to come and join us at Jazz at Lincoln Center, that we feel are playing Duke Ellington's music really at the highest level with the true spirit of the music. So it's a celebration of, young people playing the music and moving it forward, but also of the amazing writing and playing of Duke Ellington and his orchestra. And of course, our orchestra, the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, was initially founded with founding members and surviving members of Duke's orchestra. So it's a beautiful tradition to keep moving forward.
Great lineage there. That's cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your album. Are there some particular tracks maybe that show off the Wrecking Crew side of you on your new album?
A lot of them are original pieces of mine. Provoking Luck, Inside Looking Out, The Roar and the Whisper. Those are some of the more up-tempo, and The Roar and the Whisper is, of course, the title track. There are a couple tracks with one of my best friends and favorite creative colleagues, Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, and that's her piece, Moon Song, that she contributed to the record. And then I also had her on a Billy Strayhorn composition called Tigris. There's a lot of different stuff in there. I hope your listeners enjoy it.
I kind of wonder, since the record moves between sort of these fiery moments, there's also really intimate lyrical ones. How do you approach balancing the energy when putting together an album, whether it's in your playing or in your own compositions?
I just try to let it flow and not second guess myself as I'm putting things together. And generally, if a tune is coming to mind and it wants to be written, I'll try to write it, try to finish it. And then at the end, I sort of take a look, zoom out a bit and say, what are we missing? What do we need? And then generally I can get myself to the place where it's like, okay, we need another ballad, or we need something a bit more fiery, as you said. And so it's about trying to give that overarching storyline to the listener.
With Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, you are playing mostly saxophone, and you are also a flutist. Now, someone tipped you guys off, I'm told, from the Lead Center that I am also a flutist. So I thought I would just bring up this sort of interesting thing that's like a cultural thing unique to musicians that might be interesting. Lots of flutists are trained classically, and with the fingerings being dangerously close to the saxophone players often then double on flute, playing flute when they're playing jazz music or improvising. You probably have your finger on the pulse of this more than I do, but are there some classically trained musicians who are transitioning over to jazz or getting comfortable with improvising in all different forms? Are there still more saxophonists doubling as flutists, or flutists picking up the saxophone?
I'm so happy to connect with you and to meet another flutist. And of course, you are the real deal. I strive to sound like flute was my first instrument. Saxophone was my first instrument, and I picked up flute in high school. And in jazz, and especially in the big band tradition, the saxophonists are really expected to play clarinet and flute at varying degrees. And in our orchestra, I have an amazing mentor in Ted Nash, who was in the seat that I have stepped into for over 25 years. Those are some big shoes, to say the least. He really plays everything as if it was his first instrument, and with such fluidity and such creativity as an improviser as well. I feel very lucky to be in that spot where, I'm able to express myself on different instruments and challenged to express myself on different instruments. It's certainly a daily battle. You pick up one horn and today's a good day for the flute, but that clarinet's fighting me today. And we all experience that. So I think for anybody who's thinking of playing jazz or exploring from classical music to jazz music, or thinking of picking up another instrument in either genre, either field, we're all in the same boat of just trying to figure it out. It's fun. It's an adventure.
It's kind of a different musculature, because if people haven't played clarinet or sax, there's this reed against the mouthpiece. But if you're playing flute, you're really using some different muscles in what musicians call the embouchure, so how you place your mouth in order to be able to play. Do you do some exercises? Do you warm up? Do you work on tone? If you're in a performance situation, how do you know you're going to switch that musculature from instrument to instrument well?
I did have a lot of different exercises that I used to do to practice switching, and now it's just become sort of second nature. And I do have certain exercises that I like to do on each horn every day, if possible. Sort of everything from a crash course, 10-minute warm-up routine to 45 minutes to an hour, or, whatever it is. So I just know that there are certain things that I need to do to feel good on the horn. And it's very similar to, exercise and maintaining your health. It's become that type of a routine for me.
Got to do leg day.
Exactly.
How does performing with a large ensemble like this compare to leading your own smaller group?
I feel super lucky to be able to be in both situations. Traveling full-time with Wynton and the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra has really, really shown me the value and importance of that sacrifice that a lot of people make to play in larger ensembles. I've always been interested in large ensemble. I've always loved big band. I've always been like, I want to be in the section. I want to be on the team. I want to be a part of that group. It's not for everybody. Some people would rather be leading their own band. 4 people, certainly easier to travel with. But there's something special about the mixture of personalities and characters that makes up a big band. And while you don't have the same amount of space to stretch out and take a long solo and explore different heights, there's so much groundwork and communication and foundational collaboration that needs to happen for it to be successful. And I mean groundwork in terms of just listening to each other, playing off of each other. You have to be very selfless about it. You have to recognize that this is not about you. You are a cog in the overall machine. It's not for everybody, like I said, but it's always really fueled me. And it's always kind of felt to me like there was no way I was going to be on a professional sports team. So this was as close as I could get. This definitely feels like a sports team. And I'm very excited because we are actually all going to go to a basketball game together when we get there.
Hey, oh, nice. That will be exciting.
Yeah, that'll be really fun. I've heard that at the Lead Center, they do this thing where they announce us as if we're basketball players. Well, where they'll be like, coming in at 5'5" from West Hartford, Connecticut, Alexa Tarantino. And the librarian, our amazing librarian, Kay, she texted me. She was like, yeah, you're new to this. You've never, done the Lead Center thing before. They announce you with your stats. And I was like, wait? With my weight? And she was like, no. I'm like, that is probably the most embarrassing sports team. Like, and now, you don't want to have a jazz orchestra coming up with their weight statistics. We sit in our orchestra chairs for a living. We are not doing leg day for a living.
I love that so much. Yeah, the stats have to be very specific. We don't want to be offensive or or embarrassing or whatever. Oh, that's so awesome. Well, I think as we close out our conversation, we'll hear the title track from Roar and the Whisper. Any setup that you want to give our listeners for that particular track, your title track?
It's a little bit of a moody bluesy type of piece. And it just has this really strong contrast of, well, you'll hear it. Musicians always say you'll hear it, but you will. Very strong emotional contrast. So it's kind of that dichotomy of like being on two different ends of the spectrum in terms of your mood. It actually stems from a really funny experience that Cecile and I had where this guy just wouldn't leave us alone when we were out at a restaurant, and we both had polar opposite reactions to him. I kind of went off on him, and she sort of looked at him. She gave him like the look, but it was just, that's where this came from. So that's the behind the scenes story. I don't tell everybody that, but that's what it is.
One of you was the roar and the other was the whisper, I'm gathering.
Exactly. And me being the Italian, that was the roar.
Alexa, such a pleasure to meet you and talk with you here on our Friday Live this morning.
You too. Thank you, Genevieve. Thanks to the whole team. Such a pleasure.
I've been talking here with saxophonist Alexa Tarantino of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. She's performing with Wynton Marsalis and the orchestra at the Lead Center on Sunday, November 2nd. That concert is at 7 p.m. You can also stream Alexa's new album, The Roar and the Whisper, which is out now. And as always, for more information about Alexa or the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra or anything you hear about on today's show, visit the Friday Live page. That's at nebraskapublicmedia.org. I'm Genevieve Randall. Still to come, a visual description of a piece of art at the Sheldon Museum and an accompanying statement from the curator who chose it. Also, in about 9 minutes, a Nebraska filmmaker talks about a chilling project he's been documenting. The Friday Live Extra this week features a couple of chats about the arts, creepy carnival art in North Platte, and a concert this weekend full of funny names and unexpected instrument combos.
He's a fictional composer invented by musicologist Professor Peter Schickele, who was a professor at the University of Southern North Dakota at Hoople. He discovered these manuscripts from one of Johann Sebastian Bach's 20-odd sons. I think he was the oddest as well, and has brought these compositions to us. We're going to play them.
Hear more about an all PDQ Bach concert and more on the Friday Live Extra. You can listen right on the Friday Live page at nebraskapublicmedia.org/Friday Live. Support for programming comes from Hastings College. For students navigating the college search, Hastings offers a place where every student is known and essential. At Hastings College, your place matters. Information at hastings.edu. Support for programming is also provided by the Lead Center for Performing Arts, bringing the Soweto Gospel Choir to Lincoln on November 13th. The Peace Concert features a mix of African gospel music, freedom songs, and spirituals. Tickets on sale now at leadcenter.org.
Usted está escuchando Viernes en Vivo por Nebraska Public Media.
Hello, this is David Moskovich, and I'll be reading from 36 Months, which is out from Ravenna Press. Quick intro to this. It's a memoir in verse. 0 months. Perfect, says the doc, printing the ultrasound black and white. He misses the fetus, crisp as daylight, fingering an F-U. A message from the womb. 2 weeks, 2 days. Bottle, baby, my upper body bare. Her mouth searches, lips puckered, suckling success. Lips focused on target, nibbling at my shoulder tattoo. The artist. 3 weeks, 1 day. 1 tooth. Did you just bite the chunk of my belly with your only tooth after grabbing the bottle of milk, girl? The dentist. 6 weeks. On the cradle, I disabled the rocking function, and now you only sleep when I make scratching sounds against the sides. Who knew to rock or not to rock? 7 weeks, 3 days. When daddy wants meat, fish, rice, or anything else, baby cries. Seems preordained that daddy's lunchtime is interrupted by baby's naptime clockwork. Just when daddy drifts off for a blissful 7-minute nap, guess who tumbles effortlessly next to his left eardrum, deep wailing hunger cry. Timing. 3 months, 3 days. Sleeping was a thing of the past. Baby wakes, slurps formula, naps 10 minutes. Zombie daddy never has to wake up because he never sleeps, therefore is always asleep. If 75% of 1 hour is slept with eyes closed, daddy sings with success, devours golden bream whole, almost human. Zombie daddy rearranges alphabet, A, C, D, B, M. Always change diapers before midnight. Zombie daddy. 5 months, 2 weeks, 1 day. Market. When cashier says, "Hi, princess," baby gives a warm welcome with her middle finger. Shopping with mask. 6 months, 6 days. Wakes up, starts babbling right away. Daddy says, "Good morning, my love." Baby reaches over cradle's edge, pulls daddy's ear, says, "Caca." Sweet mornings. 11 months. First smile, glorious joy. First laugh, first burp, so proud. First kick in the balls. The girl means business on the love of parenting. 5 months, 2 weeks, 3 days. No dolls, no toy trucks, nor fire engines, no tech. Number 1, no joke, aluminum foil, the greatest toy.
David Moskovich read some excerpts from her first 36 months. Moskovich is a Romanian-American author of 4 novels, You Are Make Very Important Bath Time, Life Plus 70, Redacted, Blink If You Love Me, and Manhattan Other. Registration is now open for Moskovich's new online creative writing workshops at sherlockwhisperer.blogspot.com. I'm Dave Hughes.
The Sheldon Museum of Art in downtown Lincoln has a collection of work exploring the color red. It's up now through December. Multiple curators from the UNL campus as well as the community contributed to the exhibition. Each curator wrote a statement to go with the piece that they chose. We'll hear a visual description of one of the pieces next from Chief Curator and Associate Director for Curatorial Affairs, Magdalena Moskalowicz. That will be followed by the curator reading their statement.
Bill Reed, The Legacy, Raven, 1974. Bill Reed's screen print, The Legacy, Raven, comes from a print portfolio titled The Salmon, Canada's Plea for a Threatened Species, from 1974. The vertical print on a beige color sheet of paper, roughly 22 by 17 inches, depicts the eponymous bird in red and black form line, a traditional curvilinear visual style of indigenous people of the Northwest. The raven has its wings stretched wide and its large head turned, so it's seen in profile with a massive eye in the middle. The figure is highly stylized, that is, constructed using form line that not only delineates shape, but is also decorative. The black lines that create the raven silhouette are thin in some areas and thick in others. They alternatingly bulge and contract as they demarcate the bird's head with a long beak, its thin body and wide wings, akin to large hands, its one visible claw, its tail. The red lines, similarly stylized, fill the insides of those shapes for an overall effect that is highly ornamental. The print was acquired by Sheldon Museum of Art in 1975, just a year after it was made. The piece is displayed framed, hung on a wall.
The trickster figure is a potent force in many tribal cultures. Whether incarnated as coyote or rabbit or Spider-Man, it embodies humankind's uncanny animality, that vital instinctual force that is forever poking holes in society's static conventions, its comfortable modes of civilized rule and order. Inhabiting a conceptual realm somewhere between Carl Jung's Shadow and Mikhail Bakhtin's Carnival, the trickster can be read as the human psyche's primal drive towards both chaos and revolution, towards both Thanatos and Eros, towards both destruction and new birth. As a scholar of birds, I have long been delighted by the fact that the trickster among Pacific Northwest tribal peoples is often a corvid, specifically a raven or a blue jay. Bill Reed's The Legacy Raven presents a stylized raven, intentionally patterned after traditional Coast Salish art. I imagine the bird performing her crazy role as trickster, simultaneously partaking in a ceremonial dance and strutting her laughing way towards standing civilization on its head.
Thanks so much for listening to Friday Live here on Nebraska Public Media. I'm Genevieve Randall. If The Shining sent a shiver down your spine, Tales from the Crescent brings that same haunted energy to life at the Real Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, known as the most haunted hotel in America. The film about this hotel uncovers chilling stories surrounding its most infamous owner, Dr. Norman Baker, a millionaire and radio personality who claimed to have discovered a cure for cancer. Joining me today is Lincoln-based filmmaker and writer Drew Bulke, who brought the hotel's story to life. Drew, welcome this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is pretty amazing. You actually got to show the film last night at the Joyo in Havelock, yes?
Yes, we did, yeah.
Some good reactions?
We did have really good reactions, yeah. It was a pretty packed house as well, so, yep. Lots of spilt popcorn on the floor by the end of the film, so.
How did you first find the story of the Crescent Hotel?
Yeah, so me and my creative partner on this project, Grant Parsons, we were going on a road trip down to New Orleans, and we just wanted to kind of stop in a handful of different towns, make it a really long one, and Eureka Springs was the first stop after leaving Lincoln. It's only a 6-hour drive from here. Really beautiful going in. So we get there, explore this, I think it's like a town of 2,800, right? And we go to the hotel and, learn about its history a little bit and get back to the Airbnb that night and doing research. And I'm like, it'd be fun to watch a documentary on this while we're here, and it didn't exist, and we were both shocked, after finding out everything about it, especially with the bottles and all the ghost stuff. So for the handful of months, probably about 3 or 4 months, worked with the hotel to get the rights to tell the story. They agreed, and then we shot it in 2023. We're there for about 3 total weeks out. Everything we shot and filmed was at the hotel.
So you mentioned bottles. Can you explain for our listeners what you're talking about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So there's a Norman Baker, as you just heard. He was a owner there during the Great Depression, and he turned the hotel into a cancer hospital. And, long story short, he wasn't really a doctor, was kind of doing messed up experiments and things on people. One of the quotes from the movie is he treated human beings like guinea pigs. And so lots of crazy stuff with that. But in 2019, the gardener at the hotel was doing a landscaping thing and uncovered 500 bottles buried behind the hotel, and most of them had human tissue, human body parts, operating tools and all this crazy stuff. And there was also film that they found buried in there that said Norman Baker's cure for cancer. So they were able to completely link it to him.
Whoa. Are there relatives or people who remember this guy? Like, this has been a while, but...
Yeah, no, there definitely is. I actually, for the film, we did not interview him, but I was able to get in contact with a distant relative of Norman Baker, and he said under no circumstances did he want to talk about him, which... understandable.
I can imagine.
But yeah, there is a lot of links back to him, and there's honestly still families that had family members, die under his care there. So it's still something that has a long-lasting, lingering effect for people.
In your research and making the film, did you discover how this building survived throughout the years after this happened, and then staying a hotel after that?
Yeah, a little bit. So they. After he was there and got arrested and all this stuff, you can watch the film and find all that stuff out. But it kind of closed down for a while, and then it had a handful of different owners that were trying to keep it going, and it kind of had a rough go for a while. But the current owners, her husband passed away, but they put a ton of money into it. They didn't change anything. It's still the old 1886 Victorian beautiful building, and it just even if it wasn't haunted, which it is, it feels like it just because of the aesthetic, but they really kind of wanted to keep that afloat, and now it's a very flourishing hotel, and people go there for the beauty of it and also to have their own paranormal experiences.
Amazing. Did you experience anything?
We did have a few things happen. I can't say that I visually saw anything, but during one of our interviews, we were filming. We had a 30-pound camera case in the back of the parlor room. There's not a door, but there was nobody back there, and it's on a dining room table, completely flat. Had been there for hours and hours, right? And we're interviewing Danita, who's one of the subjects in the film, and the second I asked a question about Norman Baker, we heard this really loud crash sound. No joke. And we went back there, and the camera case was on the floor, and the lenses were sprawled out. And I mean, we didn't see it, but you explained to me how a 30-pound camera case.
Yeah, right. Who's to explain? Yeah. Who knows? Well, I wish we had forever to talk about this. It's so fascinating. But I want to let people know a little bit about you, too. You've worked on everything from commercials to comedy features to documentaries, obviously. What makes a project like this one stand out for you as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I think, honestly, the paranormal, whether you believe it or not, I think you can debunk a lot of stuff, but some stuff you can't. And I've always just been intrigued by that since I was a kid, and I know Grant has too. But I think the thing that stands out to me the most is this hotel means so much to so many people for so many reasons. I can't tell you, when I go down to Eureka Springs, everybody's like, thank you so much for making something on this. But my personal favorite part is that so many people that I had help make this film with me, from the editor to the composer, they're all Lincoln-based as well.
Who's the composer?
Philip Daniel. Yeah.
3 snaps. We just had Philip Daniel on our show from McCook not too long ago.
Did you really?
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
We broadcast live, and he played there at the Fox Theater in McCook. So,
dude, he is a G. He's so good at what he does. When I sit there and watch him, he's watching my film, right? And then he's just a mad scientist back there, and then all of a sudden the music's just perfect. But that's that honestly, because a lot of people that make films live in New York or LA or bigger cities, and I've lived in some of those places too, but it's really, really special to show that really, really good art, whether it's music or, this film or actual, drawing, which I can't do. It's really important to me to show that there's a lot of talent right here in Lincoln and also in Nebraska as a whole.
Speaking my language, Drew. Speaking my language. Well, Drew Boelke is my guest here on Friday Live, and we have been talking about his art, which covers a spooky hotel that is got some really chilling history and bottles with human parts in them, which is totally crazy. Drew, thank you for joining us this morning and telling us about this film. That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And for those of you out there, it is Tales from the Crescent. It is available on Amazon Prime and Apple TV as well.
Yeah, Drew Bolke's film was screened in Lincoln last night, but as he said, you can watch it there on those couple places. Tales from the Crescent, now streaming. And for more information, if you forget what we just said, go ahead and visit the Friday Live page. We've got links to more at nebraskapublicmedia.org. Once again, Drew, what a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
A Day of the Dead concert in Omaha is coming up this weekend. We'll get details a little bit later on this morning's Friday Unalive. This is the day of all days that you need to know your monsters. Perhaps you feel you have a handle on zombies, vampires, and werewolves. What about Frankensteins?
Frankenstein is accessible. It's also just penetrated our culture so much through movies, through stage adaptations, through even breakfast cereal such as Frankenberry. Right. The story is part of our cultural consciousness.
Is the Frankenstein story we think we know from the movies true to Mary Shelley's 1818 novel? UNL professor Michael Page joined an All About Books host to dig up the real story of this Gothic masterpiece. Brave this week's podcast at nebraskapublicmedia.org/allaboutbooks. Support for programming on Nebraska Public Media comes from Sheldon Museum of Art, presenting a lecture by Julia Blout, Senior Director of Curatorial Affairs at the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation. She'll talk about the career and artistic legacy of Robert Rauschenberg as part of a centennial celebration of the artist's birth. The talk is November 6th at 5:30 p.m. sheldonartmuseum.org. Support for programming also comes from Cornerstone Bank, a family-owned bank providing custom investments, trust, and estate planning services since 1882 with 48 Nebraska locations. To learn more, cornerstoneconnect.com. Cornerstone Bank, building trust on a solid foundation. Thanks for listening here this morning to our Friday Unalive, this week being Halloween. The Hastings Symphony is marking its 100th anniversary this season with a special concert on Sunday, November 2nd at the Masonic Center Auditorium. The program features the world premiere of a 5-score festival, 100 Majors for 100 Years. It's a new composition by Dr. Tyler White, professor of composition at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and conductor of the UNL Symphony Orchestra, as well as Hastings Symphony Orchestra. The piece honors a century of music there in Hastings and the symphony's lasting impact on its community, which is also being highlighted at the Hastings Museum in their Century of Sound exhibition. That's now through February 1st. Tyler White joins me here this morning. Welcome. Great to see you again, Tyler.
Great to see you.
Lots to talk about. Congrats on this premiere of this new piece.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
100 Majors for 100 years. Tell us the origin story and how this piece came about.
Well, when I signed on with Hastings a couple of years ago, I knew the 100th anniversary was coming up, and I decided to write a piece to honor that. And it just made sense to base the whole thing around the idea of 100, and so it's exactly. I gave myself the limit of exactly 100 measures, and sometimes toward the end the measures get a little bit longer. They have a little bit more to say.
I have an idea for this. As a college student who's written papers that need to be a certain number of pages, I know about changing the font size. I think the equivalent in music might be just adding more beats to one measure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then there are some fairly large measures.
What's the largest measure? How many beats in one measure?
Oh, about 6.
6. Okay, so not too bad. Not too bad.
but based on the half note, so it's 6/2.
So what do you think of the results? How did that whole concept of having 100 measures shape the structure of the piece and the outcome?
Well, it made it need to be very concise. The piece is festive and has a very bouncy, catchy tune in it, but along with sort of grand fanfare gestures, ends really big and sort of heroic, and and I think that goes along with the sort of heroic nature of an institution like the Hastings Symphony in a town of 20,000 people, to have an orchestra that's flourished for 100 years, starting as what was known as the Dime Symphony, because it only cost 10 cents to get in, and now it's had a really distinguished record, and I really encourage people to stop by the Hastings Museum and take a look at the exhibition. It's really fascinating, incredibly detailed. They came up, the organizers of the exhibition were able to find just tons of information about, and I know that'll spark a lot of memories from people in Hastings and across central Nebraska.
All I've seen so far, some historic pictures of symphony members, and just the hairstyles alone are worth, I think.
Oh, sure.
Seeing some of that.
It's always the case.
Just to remind listeners, that is open at the Hastings Museum through February 1st. Did you participate in any consulting for that, or?
Not really, since I'm fairly new to the organization. I left that up to the folks who've been around the organization for a lot longer and would have a lot more background on that.
That makes sense. I mentioned in my intro, Tyler, that you also serve as professor of composition. You're a conductor of the UNL Symphony Orchestra.
Correct.
How does your work with students and young musicians inform your approach to a project like everyday work with the Hastings Symphony, or a project like writing this piece for the symphony?
Well, a conductor is always a teacher. No matter what level of player you're working with, you have to gauge your teaching style around your audience, of course, and I find just as in working with university students, you try to be really nurturing and help them develop. Since the Hastings Symphony has in its membership a lot of community members, as well as college students and music teachers from across central Nebraska. It's a really diverse membership. So it's important to gauge the whole rehearsal style, to welcome and support and knit together these diverse elements, and to help everyone have the best possible experience making music together.
Which obviously creates the best possible experience for the audience as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you talk for just a little bit about the legacy of Hastings Symphony Orchestra for the community?
It's incalculable, I think. Not being a Hastings resident, it's hard for me to quite fathom how important it is. But there are folks who retire to Hastings, for example, knowing that there's this great cultural resource there, that you can live in a small town in Nebraska and yet have access to great music, great art. So again, the effect, the impact on the community is incalculable, and I just it's hard to imagine Hastings without the symphony, and just as it's hard to imagine Hastings without the college.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that those two, the legacy of those two institutions really go together to form what's so special about that town.
I will briefly mention, because I don't know if you knew this, that there is a professional harpist who grew up in Hastings and became a professional because she first heard a harp in the Hastings Symphony Orchestra.
Isn't that wonderful? That's
Julie
perfect.
Smith Phillips. And she now plays in San Diego in the symphony and comes back to Nebraska once a year to lead a harp retreat in Brownville, which is really cool.
That's terrific. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so see, you never know what influence you're going to have. Well, our listeners here this morning can hear a premiere of one of Tyler's pieces here in celebration of this symphony orchestra, a 5-score festival, 100 measures for 100 years. That is part of a concert coming up on Sunday, this Sunday, November 2nd at 3 p.m. at the Masonic Center Auditorium in Hastings. Don't forget that daylight savings ends this weekend as well, so don't let that mess up the time that you show up for this concert. Be sure to also visit the Hastings Museum's A Century of Sound exhibit celebrating 100 years of the Hastings Symphony Orchestra. Many thanks to you, Tyler, for joining me today. Thanks for talking with me about the Hastings Symphony.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me.
And for more information, as always, visit the Friday Live page at nebraskapublicmedia.org. Telling your stories from the places we call home, this is Nebraska Public Media. The Omaha Symphony presents a Day of the Dead concert this weekend. KVNO's Abigail Gosek has more.
The leaves are falling, the wind is growing colder, and a festive energy is growing within the Omaha community as holidays grow near. A celebration of both death and life. Dia de los Muertos is a vibrant holiday that honors lost loved ones. The Omaha Symphony will be hosting their own celebrations with their upcoming Dia de los Muertos concert November 1st at the Holland Center, beginning at 2 p.m. Liz Kendall Weiser, Director of Education and Community Engagement at the Omaha Symphony, says that the concert will both observe the traditions of the holiday while also presenting an opportunity for anybody to learn more about Dia de los Muertos.
Being able to create music like this, I think that's the part that's most special to me, is the fact that we have the opportunity for my kids to learn different heritages from their friends on stage playing this music.
As part of the Symphony's Family Concert Series, the Dia de los Muertos concert will feature various pre-concert activities beginning at 1:15 p.m. In collaboration with the Mexican American Immigrant Society, an ofrenda honoring and remembering conductors and musicians from the Omaha Symphony will be found in the lobby of the Holland Center.
But then we also have an opportunity for our audience to participate in building an ofrenda. So there will be a craft opportunity to make paper marigolds to add to our ofrenda and to draw loved ones or maybe favorite foods to be able to add to our altar. And then, of course, no family concert would be complete without our instrument petting zoo. So we'll have instruments for kiddos to explore before the concert as well.
After 2 p.m., guests will be invited to find their seats. Assistant conductor Serena Royton and Emmanuel Science, baritone and host of the night, will lead the audience through the concert. Joining the symphony, local mariachi group Los Chorritos will be performing their own songs.
They are some students who have taken on a mariachi as a practice at a young age, as well as the students who study mariachi through Omaha Public Schools. So not only are we playing music that has the traditions and the composers mirror the heritages that are often celebrate this holiday, we are giving the giant Holland stage to some of our youngest performers so that they can share their traditions with their peers.
The concert will feature both traditional music as well as several pieces from the 2017 film Coco.
So we will be playing several pieces from that film, again, highlighting Remember Me or Recuérdame, which is the recurring theme that happens throughout the program. We also are talking about La Bruja, the Little Witches, so we'll have a fun children's song in there. The mariachi kids are singing Salida Lindo and De Colores, which will be very familiar songs to children and adults alike. And then we've got some new pieces from Mexican and Central American composers that we're excited to expose our families to.
For more information about the Dia de los Muertos concert, you can visit omahasymphony.org.
We're your neighbors, and we're happy to celebrate all your traditions with you. because those sorts of connections are what make Omaha such a phenomenal community to be a part of.
For Friday Live, I'm Abigail Gosek.
I'm Genevieve Randall. Coming up this morning on Nebraska Public Media, music from Nebraska stages on Nebraska Concerts, hosted by Laura Black. Be sure to visit the Nebraska Public Media website for podcasts of the show at nebraskapublicmedia.org, or subscribe to the Friday Live podcast using your favorite podcast service. Portions of Friday Live are pre-recorded. Friday Live is not possible without collaboration from Andy Herman, Phoenix Carroll, Kate Leader-Johnson, Student Workers KJ Tedder, and Cole McEwen, KVNO's Gabriel Escalera, and associate producer Dave Hughes. I'm Genevieve Randall. Everything we do at Nebraska Public Media is possible only with members who donate. This podcast version of our weekly radio show Friday Live, podcasts of our television show Backyard Farmer, and so much more, all of it is thanks to donors, underwriters, and other private support. You can support Nebraska Public Media online at nebraskapublicmedia.org.